Thomas Sherlock, welcome. Really appreciate you taking a few moments.
Of course, appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Absolutely. So I was reading on your profile, Thomas, that over your career, you've done something like 10 billion plus in financial transactions. So you come from a long background in the financial services industry, the investment banking, the mortgage, the real estate space. And it's our pleasure to talk with someone who's been a trailblazer in your industry.
I appreciate you saying that. I think the only thing that volume of business shows is that I'm old. So I've been around a long time.
All right. Well, you're looking pretty good. Thanks again. So we did some work with Talinvest Capital. Can you just describe in a sentence or two or a minute or two just what Talinvest does as a company?
Sure. Talinvest is a mortgage banking firm. We do a lot of brokerage work. Our client in the self-storage, office, industrial, multifamily, kind of the commercial real estate world. And our clients are predominantly some of the larger private owner operators in the United States, often with institutional joint venture equity partners. So there's a high level of experience and a high level of sophistication involved with our clientele.
Got it. And what are the primary services that Talinvest offers?
We bring capital to the commercial real estate world. We frequently get hired to bring bridge financing, construction financing, long-term permanent fixed rate financing, occasionally joint venture equity into the capital stack for our clients. So we're their advisor to structure the capital for their deals.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Thomas, can you just describe the makeup of your team, the size of your team, the primary roles on your team?
Sure. Today we're a firm of 13 people, so we're a boutique firm. We are growing. We're signing a new lease, so we're going to double our team size in the near future. But the roles on the business side, we have a team of business developers, folks who go out and find new developers, new financing opportunities. And we have a business execution team. And our business execution team consists of predominantly three roles. Relationship managers, they're more experienced, been in the business for 15, 20 years, and they really manage the capital provider relationships within our firm. They lead the business execution on any given assignment. They're supported by a team of underwriters who do a lot of the financial and market research, and a closing manager who, once an application is executed with a capital provider, helps to coordinate a very task-oriented and sometimes complex process of getting from application signed all the way onto a closing of a capital transaction.
Wonderful. And we had the opportunity to work with your team for several months to help streamline some of the operations and your deal flow. How would you describe the situation or characterize the situation in terms of operational efficiency before we had the opportunity to work with you?
I'll say that to a certain extent, we had inconsistency in our process. So depending on which members of the business execution team were involved in any given assignment, there wasn't great consistency in how we executed. From the client's perspective, working with Talinvest, they may experience this on one transaction and this on another transaction. Not wildly disparate, but enough differences that there was noticeable inconsistency. The second thing that I think was a reality before we started working with Completing is we have some remote workers. So internal communication and coordination had some challenges at times. People have high velocity. There's a lot of deals and assignments they're working on at any given time. And so sometimes that coordination and communication suffered.
It's not uncommon, really uncommon. You have a core team in the office, but then you have some team members working in a hybrid or remote fashion, and there can be some inconsistency in the communication and the priorities and whatnot. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so you were looking at Asana as a project management tool. What did you see in Asana that was a good fit for you? And then what were you wanting us to help you accomplish with Asana?
A couple of things. I smile when you ask that question. There are quite a few things that we really would like to have wanted to experience from working with you guys and with Asana. That first one, I mentioned consistency of process. We do a lot of repeat business with our clients, and we wanted our clients, regardless of who they worked with on the Talinvest team, to say they really have a process nailed down that is incredibly efficient and constructive and productive to get me from point A to point B. And it doesn't really matter which person on the Talinvest team is involved in my execution. They're all immensely talented, and I know how this process is going to work. So that consistency was a huge factor for us. Our process flow tool, if you will, was Publisher. It was a roadmap, with hundreds, and it had grown to hundreds. And you remember some of those early conversations. It was, we were into the weeds. We were into far too much minutia. So we were trying to really streamline things. And you and your team did a fantastic job working with us to affect the Pareto principle. What are those 20% of things that you do that have 80% or more of the impact? So we really kind of narrowed down our focus so that we could really execute well and be ultra consistent from the client's perspective. Part of what came out of this, and maybe it was an unintended consequence or an ancillary benefit, maybe is a better way to describe it. We really did reevaluate what our process flow was. It had been established and refined, but it had been established 13 years ago and maybe refined a couple of times along the way. But we were really operating sort of from a process management style in a 2010 world instead of a 2023 world.
What I was really impressed with, Thomas, was the commitment with you, your principals, and your team to modernizing your approach and bringing in the new technology to reduce the workload and make everyone's life easier, provide more visibility and clarity. And without that commitment to modernizing, without that commitment to really streamlining, it's very common that companies just get stuck in the old ways, right? And they use the old technology. As you said, you were using a massive spreadsheet to track these things, and it became more burdensome than liberating. And people...
That's a perfect description. It was more burdensome. And fast forward to today, when I look at predominantly our business execution team, and so much of this workflow process is enveloped in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, how much more efficient it is today, how much more knowledge there is, because these are interconnected, team members. As you said, some of them are working remotely or in a hybrid situation. And even if they're all in the office at the same time, they're moving quickly on multiple assignments. And Asana provided a central repository for information. And anybody could go in and say, where does this assignment stand at this moment in time? And it's, as long as people are inputting in the moment time, and we aren't that efficient yet, but it's close to being real time. And if I want to understand, hey, what's going on with this particular assignment, I'm going to be talking to XYZ client, in a half an hour, I can just jump into Asana and see exactly where we are in the process, and with the communication that's happening amongst the team, see what kind of issues we may have experienced and solved that never got surfaced at a higher level, because they could just be executed by the team, because that communication was so much more fluid today than it would have been in a different day. So
that makes perfect sense. Again, your team was so open and embracing, but there's always people, and there's always challenges when we're changing behaviors at the end of the day and learning a new system. It just takes some time to take hold with the team and listening to everyone, really understanding their individual struggles that they're going through, their bottlenecks, and really trying to solve at the individual level and the team level. Were there some surprises that you came across along the way that you didn't expect once you got into the implementation?
The biggest surprise is a compliment to you and your team. In particular, Yago. He was a superstar in this execution because his forte is the technology world and how Asana as a workflow process management tool could benefit us. That's his expertise. He's not an expert in the real estate capital markets, the commercial real estate world. He could take his knowledge and overlay it on what we do and how we do it in such a shockingly seamless manner. And he was so integrated inside our organization. He did deep dive conversations with multiple people on the team, and he problem solved things all along the way. He and other members, you and other members of the team, helped us refine our own process, and you're not in our business. You would sit there and go, wait a minute, what if you do this differently? Or what does this really need to be in here? Is this a vestige to the old days, so to speak? But that was really surprising. I think in the commercial real estate world, the running joke is we're dinosaurs as an industry. We're slow to adopt technology. And here we are just getting our eyes, forced to be wide open when we're interacting with your team. And again, how quickly you guys understood the implications and the value adds that could be brought forth through Asana. That really was shocking, maybe is too strong a word, but it's not too far. It's not too far away. We were just phenomenally impressed with the team. And I can't sing Yago's praises enough, because inside our organization, That's what everybody was saying, how spectacular he was.
He was a perfect fit for the job, and we were grateful that he could really jump in there and be a problem solver and essentially become a member of your team during that implementation. That's our goal, is not to be perceived as the alien invader, if you will, but to really become part of your team and really understand the environment.
Well, one of the things, just to add on to that, we started out with our business execution workflow process management problem that you guys helped us solve. Inside that, we ended up with boards for our marketing team and how can they interact more effectively and efficiently with the business execution and the business development teams and me and my role inside the organization and our controller inside the organization. So we ended up starting with here's this central core issue that we want to work on. And it ended up, okay, let's start talking about a work board for marketing, and let's start talking about a work board. What happens after the deal closes? There's a lot of follow-up that we try to differentiate ourselves with our clients by not being sort of that typical broker mentality story that's out in the world of, hey, deal's closed, my hand's out, where's my fee? We're following up and trying to add value to the closing. Well, there's some consistency that needs to be handled in that. There's communication that needs to be handled in that. And we ended up with a post-closing activity board. Again, so much because Iago was kind of like, wait a minute, what if he did this? And it was like, wow, that's a great idea.
Well, you bring up a really good point, Thomas. Business processes are interconnected, right? You might have different departments, but you want those department workflows to move seamlessly across individuals and teams, and you want to remove the silos and break down the silos so everyone can see and correlate what's going on internally without wondering, okay, where does this stand? Who's working on this? When's this going to be done? You just want to have one place.
Exactly right. And because in our business, and then maybe it's true for a lot of other businesses too, we have a standardized process, we have a system we follow, but each assignment has some quirks and we can adapt. We don't have to rework the entire workflow process management tool, but we can communicate inside and assign tasks of, hey, this needs to be done really quickly by this date. And here's the relevant person who needs to take care of this because this is truly an ultra high priority. And that can happen like this. And especially with some remote workers, that's really, really important for us in our business because it is a time sensitive. Our average assignment is in the $20-25 million range, and they range from $500 million on the high end, to $10 million on the low end. But there's a lot of money involved for our clients, and time matters, and communication ultimately leads to execution. It's critical to break down those silos. It's just really invaluable, and Asana has made a huge difference in that. Really has.
Well said. Well said. I'm curious, if you could boil this down to, 3 to 5 impacts that it's had on the business, what would you say those top few impacts have been?
Yeah, number one, unquestionably, is consistency. That was something that I think we needed more. I don't think our clients were telling us that, but we were telling ourselves based on a little bit of feedback from clients, but we were telling ourselves we needed to create that consistency. The second thing, and we talked about it, is communication. Real timely. There's a lot of competing priorities, being able to communicate effectively and efficiently inside a working team. That was the second one. And third, the central repository for communication. Everything inherent in our deals is residing inside the Asana tool. We've got our tasks broken down, and there's no right way or wrong way, in my mind at least, on how that communication works. Through experience, we started to say what works best for us, and we now have a tendency to communicate inside tasks. So if somebody's looking at, and this is an overly simplistic example, but if somebody's looking and saying, hey, wasn't there an issue on we had to deal with on the appraisal for this assignment, we can literally go to that task, and everything that we talked about related to the appraiser is sitting right in that task. If it's about the closing, it's in that task. So it really has centralized where we can find information, and that saves us so much time inside the organization. It's amazing how much time that saves us.
Makes perfect sense. And now that everything's so visible and you can see your deal flow, right, with clarity, everyone knows where each deal stands. Has that reduced the amount of email going back and forth? Has it reduced the number of meetings? Are some of these other impacts visible?
Yes, the reduction in the number of meetings, and kind of joke about that internally. I'm a bit of a bugaboo at, the too many meetings, and it's, but it really has, instead of calling, hey, we need this deal team to get together, we need to have, a 30-minute meeting to strategize on the next steps for this particular issue on the assignment. It's done right inside the tool. And if it's a grand total of 5 minutes instead of 4 people or 5 people in a 30-minute meeting, it's 5 minutes in total, it's staggering how much more efficiency we have because of that.
It's really hard to overstate when you can give people back an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in a week. Seems like a small amount, but that's really meaningful time. Would you agree?
It's huge, because if you're giving 1 or 2 or 3 hours in a week, well, again, we're a small boutique firm. Multiply that by the 13 people inside the organization. We just created a half a week or a full week of work time, a productive work time, without having to add the next person onto the team to do it. It's incredibly more efficient and valuable as a team, and is that much more valuable for our clients in the end. That's what matters the most. How valuable is it? It's great that it works wonderfully for us, but if it doesn't have a translation into value proposition for the client, okay. But boy, speed and time, we're in a little bit of an upside down world in the capital markets right now. And just with the way trends are, if you take a little more time, the probability is rates are going to be, the cost of capital is going to be higher than it was yesterday or a week ago. And so, and when you start talking about $20 million in financing that's going to be outstanding for 5 years, and you see a 10 basis point change in the rate, wow, it's a lot of money at stake for our client.
That makes the deal efficiency that much more important. And like you said, just the overall customer experience and the consistency of that experience.
There's one other thing I'd like to add in terms of benefits, besides the ones I talked about. As a team, we think constantly now about how can we make it more efficient? How can we make it better? We've kind of broken free from this is the way we always did it, so we need to keep doing it this way. Baseline now is, why are we doing this? What's the value add? Is there a value add? Do we need to do this? Can it come off the table because we thought it had value, but you know what? It's just because we always did it this way. And what if we, instead of doing A, what if we do B instead? And so now everybody in the firm is thinking that way. And so the constant improvement, the raising the bar just a little bit happens so much more frequently. Instead of having to say, hey, everybody, let's get together for a 1 hour meeting to review this whole giant roadmap. And now it's somebody will be like, hey, I got an idea at this thing. What if we did this? And it's just out there. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, either that's a great idea. Let's start implementing it. Let's test it. Let's implement it and test it for a little while and find out if it really works that way. Or somebody else goes, you know what? We thought about here, and here's why we don't do that. But there's that collaboration is enhanced, no doubt, because of this.
That's just a huge point in terms of just an overall mind shift and a mindset change around why are we doing it this way? Can we do it better? Let's try this, and bringing that experimentation into your processes so the process is evolving as fast as your industry is evolving, as fast as your products and services. That's true agility, really.
Yes, exactly.
Thomas, when you were contemplating doing this project, was there some skepticism initially? And what would you say for a company leader or a company right now that's considering going down this road of bringing project and systems efficiency into their organization? If they were on the fence about it, what would you tell them? What would be your advice?
I'll answer that last question first, and then I'm going to back up. If they're on the fence thinking about it, I would have 4 words of advice. Get off the fence. Start acting. Was there some skepticism, some questioning amongst the team, myself included? Yeah, there was. Okay, how much of a difference can it really make? Is this a good investment of our time? Is this a good investment of our money? We had somebody on the team who had come from another organization, had familiarity with Asana. He was the biggest proponent at the beginning, and we listened to him and ultimately said, all right, we're going to give this a chance based on his experiences. And he was a sharp and talented guy, so he had credibility when he made the recommendation, and we ultimately followed through. But there's a little voice in the back of the head going, sure about this? Technology and commercial real estate. I don't know. This is really good. So get off the fence. Without a doubt, engage, activate, because in hindsight, we were so late to the game. I mean, if we were activating on this years ago, we would be so much further than we are today. And again, we're elevating from the very first time we started using product with your guys' guidance and help. The more we activate in it, the more we learn not only about the tool, but about our process. So we can keep iterating and keep getting better, as you were describing. So the earlier somebody gets involved, the benefits start to compound.
Thank you, Thomas. Could not agree more. Really appreciate you taking some time today. Where can people find you? If someone wants to learn more about Talinvest and wants to learn more about your services, where would they go? What would you tell them?
We have a website, www.talonvest.com, TALONVEST, one word, .com. And you can also go to our LinkedIn and accounts, and that's a great way to see a lot of the things we're doing, not just in the business world, but in community at large. It tells kind of the story of who we are and how we are and what we're all about. So
wonderful. Well, you guys are innovating in your field. You're at the top of your game, and I know there's just a huge future because you've decided to bring these modern day processes into your business, and that gives you scalability and helps you deliver more for your clients. So congrats on the progress. Anything we can do, we're always here to assist, and really, really appreciate your time today, Thomas.
Can't thank you enough to you and your team, Stephen. You guys made a big difference for Talinvest, made a big difference for our team, and ultimately then for our clients. I can't thank you enough for the professionalism and the commitment that your team showed. Truly, they were spectacular.
Wonderful. We're here anytime, and thank you again for taking time out of your Monday. I'll let you get back to work.
Thanks so much.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Yep, take care.
Bye.